working for me, times the number of hours that they're all going to get trained, times the wages of all those employees. I add on the burden fringe of 20 some odd %. So when I spend $30,000 on 20 to 30 employees to do all this ISO training, I'm going to be paying their salary. And at the rate of their wages plus the fringe on top, chances are I'm going to be paying $40,000 or $50,000 in wages above and beyond the cost of the training. That's what I'm talking about in a match. So if you want a $30,000 grant, you have to come up with an in-kind contribution of $30,000. So the primary thing is we say use the wages. The exception is an ESOL will allow you to split the cost in terms of they can do some on time and some off time if they're agreeable. Now, you could have 5 training programs in a grant. That's fine. Project management cost does not have to be equal to the salary cost. What I'm saying is that when you add up all of the training you want to do in a grant, and you're looking for $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 or $100,000, you have an in-kind contribution that matches that. So first of all, we look at wages. You can put on administration cost as part of the grant because someone's going to run the grant, set up the training, track the information, talk with the vendor, and pay the bills. Okay? So we allow that. Room and board and travel is part of your match. We had a company called Gulfstream here in Western Mass. We sent 68 employees across the United States to get certification in jet engine repair. $500 for each manual. We paid for all of the training. The company paid the room and board and travel. That was their contribution. Because this grant only pays for training and nothing else, and related materials and equipment. So that gas station, we helped him pay the cost of the rental of the equipment because he wasn't keeping it. He paid overtime to his employees. We paid the cost of the trainer coming in. So on that grant, it was like 20 some odd or 30,000, between 20 and 30,000, I don't remember. But by the time he got done, his match with cost of administration, the wages he was paying overtime, plus the burden fringe on top of that, he had about $80,000 in in-kind contribution against that. And people say, well, why would I want to do this? Well, because what you get here is a real big slice of the apple that you can't afford to do on your own. We're saying you're going to take that training burden off your shoulders. You'd be doing that and paying them anyway. So what we're saying is, let's take a look at your entire program. Rather than do one thing, why don't you do 3 or 4 things? You get 24 months to do the training. All right? And when it's done, a year later, you can come back for another grant for new training. So this is not a one-shot deal as well. I do the workshop because since it's a training grant, people get concerned about writing a grant. I joke about my 20 dirty words. George Carlin had 7. I've got George Carlin? Yes? Okay, fine. I haven't reached that point where someone's going to look at me, who's George Carlin? And I'll give you a little example. The need statement is so important to this grant. Why do you need the training? It's critical that I get this training to sustain my business. Denied. You just told me without this training, you can't run the business and to do what you're going to do to keep it open. It's critical for us to expand into new markets, to penetrate an area of training, sales that we haven't been able to get into. We need the certification training for our employees to get into this market and sell it. I just use critical in 2 different ways. I'll pay for the second one. Why? New training, new skills, new market possibilities. Or with ISO, controlling cost, inventory cost, supply costs, error rate defects, customer service complaints, loss of business. All right? I always tell people to look at, even whether they're doing soft skills or hard skills, there isn't anything I can't measure. I always start with the problem, not with the training. And if you identify the problem, then its effect on the business, you can then measure what the training is going to do when the training is finished, so that change is made to correct, improve, or move your business forward. So that's what kind of the workshop is all about. And you can get as little as $4,000, or you can get as much as $250,000, or anything in between. Can you hire a grant writer? No problem. You hire a grant writer who's also going to do the training? Not a problem. Right? I have no problem. There's no harm or foul or penalty with grant writers. And I know people, even if they come to the workshop, they go, I still think I'm going to bring somebody in. Well, I understand that. Time is money. Not sure about it. You know, I just don't write well or whatever it is. That is not an issue for us in the grant. What I'm concerned about is in this grant, mission and priorities, how is this going to change, correct, or improve your business in what way, and what are the new skill sets coming to these employees? You answer those questions correctly, you'll get the grant. It's when people go off tangent and start answering things differently that the money. Now, if you get denied, by the way, we don't say, well, too bad, ha ha, go home. That's not how we operate. You get a detailed response on why you did not get the money, and we tell you to reapply. And the WIB gets involved in that. If you want to send your application to them ahead of time, they'll look at it, and then Jeff's going to call me up and say, hey, Mike, I got some questions. And I'm going to say, don't tell me who it is. Just tell me what your questions are. All right, and we can do that. All right? I can't read your application. You're struggling, you want to call me, I'm happy to talk to you about what your struggles are. I'm never going to say yes or no, yeah, put that in, you'll be approved. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions to lead you to the path to make sure what I'm hearing is clear, that it's training, new skills, and how it's helping your business, and how you measure the success. What's the return on investment? So when I do a workshop, if you want to come, fine, we can set one up here 6 or 8 weeks from now if people are agreeable, and bring everything with you want to do for training. We'll figure out how to write a grant together. So the applications are basically in a PDF form. Make sure you hit save, ladies and gentlemen. You got a 30 wait window, but I wouldn't go there. I just hit save every time you use it. The budget that you're going to do, which is a breakdown of cost and wages and cost of training, are in an Excel spreadsheet. We look for a return on investment statement, which is measuring the success of the training, which I cover. This is not a particular formula. This is your decision. You could have a small grant and have a return on investment of 5 to 10 to 1. On a $250,000 grant, I could see a return on investment of 30 or 40 to 1. The beauty of this program is you're going to tell us what you want to do for training, why you want to do the training, who you're going to train, and what you expect the results to be. I'm not telling you have to have certain results. I just want to know what they are, and do they make sense. So that's what a return on investment is. We will ask for income and balance statements for the most current 2 years. Privileged by statute, not share with anybody. So I say, look, send me your income and balance statement for the most current 2 years. Question?
Does that just for, like, for larger companies who are owned by corporate side of states, just for that particular brand?
Well, it all depends.
Or for the entire
They could, if they're standalone subsidiary, have their own finances, send me those. But if they're all lumped in as part of the corporate thing, send me the corporate.
Well, I can do both.
But I prefer the company in Massachusetts just to see how it's doing.
Yeah.
Although sometimes companies are concerned because their finance don't look too good, they want to send me the corporate stuff as well. And don't ever think you're not going to get money if you don't have real good finances. I don't want anybody to ever think that they can't get funded. I had one company that was struggling. It was a new company. And in this particular grant, once you get a grant, we give you 25% right up front to start defraying the cost of training. In this particular shirt company in Fall River, because they were shaky, we gave them a training grant. I sent them a check every month. Did the training, paid for it, sent me a bill, I sent them a check. I did this for almost 2 years, every month without fail. Why? We want them to have the money. They're still in existence. But if I started giving 25% chunks up front, I was real concerned if they were going to run into a payroll problem where that money was going to go. It's only natural. I've been out there collecting bills when I had a little company and trying to get paid, So I don't want anybody to think financials will be an issue. If you've got a concern, you can just pick up the phone and call me. I'm happy to talk to you about that. So these are the things we look for. If you have a union, if you're training union people, we look for a union letter of support on their local stationery. Basically, all I'm asking is that the unions say to us, we know the training is going to be done for our union members in the grant, and we're okay with that. That's pretty much what I'm asking for. That's all it comes down to. And obviously, union support is important, so the union understands what this training is going to do. They want to know what it's going to give for their workers and what happens down the road. We don't get into any type of contractual things or anything like that. But we learned from past history that without that letter, things can kind of hit a wall, so to speak. So they need to be involved. Now, if you're not training union people, then I don't need a union letter. It's just only if you're training union people. And it's on their stationery. So the workshop, basically, is a 3-hour workshop. I try to be very careful in my coffee consumption so I don't burst into flames at the end of 3 hours. But, again, I'm always available for questions, all right, if you can't make it. And again, you go into the website, all these workshops are there. I got only a couple more things that I'm going to talk about here. I'm going to talk about consortium grants and a technical assistance grant. And this technical assistance grant is really kind of interesting. It's been around, but utilization is kind of different. What's a consortium grant? A group of companies have similar training needs. Coming on their own, maybe not be able to get all the training that they want. I'm going to Pittsfield in 2 weeks. I'm going to do this workshop. I had done an information session. There were about 5 or 6 nonprofit companies at the table. Communication skills, selling skills to do fundraising, and communication skills. as well as some other stuff. But as they were talking and I'm discussing training, they're all going, hey, I need that, I need that, I need that. Now, if they come alone, they can probably request maybe one of those trainings because they don't pay a lot of wages to their employees in the nonprofit. They may have struggles to hit that one-to-one match. My suggestion was, look, if you sit down and meet, and you come together as a group, and look at the training you all need that's similar, why can't you get it under one grant? So the community college is working with these companies, to assess their training needs so they can apply for a consortium grant. So instead of company A coming and getting maybe a $15,000 grant, if the 4 or 5 of them come together, we'll look at it maybe a $50,000 grant, and all the training they want to do gets done under one grant. That's what a consortium grant will do. All right? It's really nice to do if you have the wherewithal. Yes?
We should also mention that as a workforce board, and if you're within Central Mass, I'd be happy to talk to you. If you're in another region, you have a local workforce board in your region, we're able to work with you as a consortium and actually take on the administrative work. So leave you to just worrying about sending your staff to the trainings when they're scheduled and all that. But all the grant reporting, all the paperwork would really fall under the board as the lead for the consortium. And we've had great success.
Right.
We just finished one up with 5 manufacturers in southern Worcester County who came together and shared a bunch of overlapping training needs, and had great success with it. We're actually looking at another consortium for manufacturers up here in the Worcester area. But certainly if there's other consortiums that would like to chat with us, it does take away some of the paperwork requirements and reporting requirements from any one company in that consortium. And we also can serve as kind of a traffic cop, if you will, for helping coordinate and schedule those trainings with you. So.
Oh, thanks. So that's a real important thing to know, because if you have a consortium, you need a lead applicant who's kind of running the show. They do a really good job. I've had some success down the South Shore as well. And so they're very skilled at doing it now, having been through the pipeline and knowing all the ropes. Yes?
That just leads me to a question. I think you mentioned earlier that part of what you can put into the grant is the administrative cost. So
Right.
Is that like an indirect cost at the bottom of the grant, or is that a
The administrative cost, it can be part of your overall match. So let's just say that you've got the grant, you've got to run the grant. So what you're going to do when you're figuring out administration cost ahead of time, you're going to say, I'm going to figure 2 or 3 hours a week on this grant over 18 months. Based on my salary, just to run the grant alone, I'm looking at $7,000 or $8,000. You plug that in under the category we call other. Or you could put it under the salaries and say administration costs for the grant. That becomes part of your match. However, on a consortium grant, we allow a 10% admin fee off the total cost of the grant to go back to the company to help defray. Because in a consortium grant, you're dealing with multiple companies. So if it was $250,000, 10% could actually would come from the grant to defray the cost of paperwork and all that type of stuff, but only in the consortium grant. Good question, thank you. All right. So the last thing I'm going to talk about now is this technical assistance grant. I know I've bombarded you with information, but who knew the state had so much money? But you're going to digest this after a while, and again, feel free to call me. The technical assistance grant, when I talk about a consortium grant, Greenfield Community College, in working with these companies I talked about, the issue here is, well, what training do they need, and what are the common factors of these trainings? The technical assistance grant is a vehicle for the community college to be hired by the group to go in and do a needs and skills assessment of the entire workforce and the company in terms of training needs. Now, this is a training needs assessment, not a business plan development, has nothing to do with HR or anything like that. Like, I need to know if I want to join these companies, is it communication, problem solving, and is it sales for getting money into the company, fundraising? Or do we also need computer training as well? Or do we need some lean training? What is it that we need? What are the skills I have in the organization, and where are these people at? Because some companies may have done some of this training and others may have not. So what's the baseline? They can use the $25,000 in hiring Greenfield Community College or another training provider, whoever they want, to do this assessment. When it's done, the assessment's going to show, I'm going to pay for the cost of the assessment and the curriculum development. When it's done, they know how many people are going to be trained. They know exactly what training they need. They were all in agreement, this is where we want to go, here's the curriculum. They're going to apply for a consortium grant. Makes perfect sense. Because if you're dealing with multiple companies, how do you know what training is similar and to what extent has people had it? So you're not repeating stuff, but you're customizing the training for all those companies to take advantage of it. What you now can do is use this as an individual company, which hadn't been done before. So my example is this, real example. A printing company in Western Mass buys 3 printing companies. He needs to get a handle on the skill sets within those organizations. What have they had for training? Where are they at? What's the company done? What training were they thinking of doing down the road? What information can he get through a skills assessment by hiring a vendor or contractor to go in and interview the employees, interview the people that are still there, get a look at the operation itself, and take a look at what they think training needs to be done. He had done some lean and continuous improvement in his own organization. The assumption being that this is what he needed. As a result of this, he finds out he also needs project management because the biggest problem is late deliveries of things coming out of these printing shops. If he hadn't done this, he probably would have gotten good training with the lean and continuous improvement, but what he would have been missing was a problem that he had in the organization of project management on time delivery. Loss of customers, loss of revenue. So when the consortium grant is done, you have 12 months to do it, but you can do it sooner than that. It goes through a review process like the other grants. So like it's a 60-day review process. You got to apply. It goes into the board for the board to look at it, just like a consortium grant and the general program grant. They look at it, make a decision, gets approved, you get a contract, you do the training. So this was a $16,000 grant. It was going to last for 3 months. That's all the time he figured it was going to take. And as soon as he's done, he puts the paperwork in and he's closed it and I've paid him, he's going to apply for the general program grant to get the training now that he knows he needs in all 4 companies so that he can get a handle so everybody's going to be on the same page. So this is new. This technical assistance grant in the past was only used for consortium, and I've been pushing for some time for individual companies who aren't large, who don't have a big HR staff, who really don't know what they need for training. Here's a chance to bring a professional in, get a handle on what your needs are so you can get the grant that's going to do the most good for your company. If you know what you need for training, don't bother with this, all right? But if you're not sure, this is a vehicle to take a look at. And I'm always happy to talk to companies before they apply. You know this has been underutilized because it's the only paper application left in the program. That's going to change down the road, but they got all these other changes coming. But I'm seeing this more and more utilized now by training providers and or other companies who before would have to do a needs assessment and eat the entire cost. And it was minimal because the company couldn't afford to do a lot of assessment. Here's an opportunity to get that taken care of. Question on that? A lot of thought on that one. Yes, down the corner.
I'm sorry, you lost me a little bit when you talked about it, like the printing example. So that was an individual who owned 3 or 4.
He bought 3 companies.
But what if, is this also applicable if, say, I'm a small company and I say I'd like to go for a consortium grant and I have someone on staff that could go out to 4 other similar companies to assess what all we...
Those 4 companies would come together, apply for a technical assistance grant. They would be partners with a lead applicant, all right? You would say to me, Mike, we want to join together. We know we have similar training needs. We're trying to get a handle on what they are to what extent. We want to identify the skills gaps in our companies and what training we have in common, all right? Hiring the training provider to go in and assess that. When that grant is done, all those companies now can come for a consortium grant. That's where that should lead. So yes, you could do that. But if you were a standalone company, machine shop in Woburn, could no longer hire the skill sets from without because it's a trade in the machining industry where people are retiring. So the first problem they have is, well, they have to train from within, but they had to revamp, well, what do we do for hiring? What skills do we need to hire? We're talking about the OJT. He tries to make a fit with regards to, well, what skill sets does this employee have? What does the company need? And how do we get them to fit together and do this training so that it's going to work? The machine company is saying, should I be testing for reading, writing, and math? And if so, what grade levels do I need? Because I got to train them now from within. I've never done that before. I don't even know where to start. Also, I need now to promote from within because I can't hire people to replace anymore because they're retiring. I'm not even sure what those skill sets are. They got a $25,000 grant to do the skills and needs assessment for the entire company to come up with an idea of what skill sets are required upon the hire so they can train these people, and internally what skill sets they need to improve on in terms of additional training, and then bring a provider in to do it. They're not done with the grant yet, but they got $25,000. What I removed from the grant was a discussion they had about a business development plan, which this doesn't pay for, and they were going to tag the results of the training needs to HR raises and promotions, which you can't do either. It has nothing to do with training. Okay? This is simply a vehicle for you if you're not sure what training you need, you're not sure where you're at. I don't want you to apply for a grant for problem solving when you need computer training. So that's what this vehicle is for. Okay? All set? I saw another hand. Another question? All set? Okay, good. So almost at the end. Oh my God, we're getting to the end. The administration of this program is now being handled by an organization called Commonwealth Corporation. It used to be run by the state. I'm still a state employee. I'm still with the program. I work hand in hand with this organization. So everything I've told you about the grants is unchanged. The paperwork is now in their hands. They administer the grants. They review the grants. They send out the checks. They follow for all the paperwork. So they're handling the administration of a state program that's funded through a trust fund. Then we give them money to give out to do these grants. My job is to be the salesperson for this program throughout the state. So if you do have a business group or organization you'd like me to talk to, I do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So feel free to call me, and I'm happy to talk at any time about the program. So that's their website. There's the 800 number. This is the manager of Commonwealth, and I work with him. Here's my phone number. And I put this gentleman's down here name, and he handles the hiring incentive training grant, because of all the changes, there's been a lot of questions. So if you have a question, you can't get hold of me, you can call John, and he'll help you through the process on the hiring incentive training grant. Questions?
The handout is different.
Yes, that's why you're going to get the PowerPoint, because that changed within 2 days. Right? I changed it twice, and I'm working for the state. I called up the printing, said, they go, well, we've got the first one done. I said, that's no good. I need the second one now. So that's why John's going to take this and send this to everybody. Okay, so you'll have it.
That's why, if anybody hasn't put their contact information on the sign-in sheet, please do so. That way I can get the PowerPoint out to you.
The last thing I'm going to talk about here is to try to re-emphasize the need for training. I happened to mention earlier that I've got to learn how to Twitter. All right, I just got the word, Mike. You need to Twitter because the program is using Twitter. Twitter to me was my little granddaughter laughing over in the corner, but Twitter. So the world is changing. Everybody texts now. I can finally text, but there's a whole new language out there with regards to texting. So what really drives home to me the need to be up to date and understand the need for training is this true story. My son started his own business in Chicago doing phone app games. Done very, very well for himself. Nice companies make games for phones and stuff like that. Comes home, we have a visit, and he's looking at my business card. And for those people who text, there's a language of texting out there, abbreviations and all that stuff that go on. So he says, oh my God, Dad, you need to do something about your business card. So what? What are you talking about? Well, it says mass.gov/WTF. You apparently can't use that anymore, apparently in the world of texting. I have no idea what he was talking about. And what are you talking about? Workforce Training Fund. Well, no, Dad. So I go back to the office and a panic ensues. All our paper, all our website, all our everything, everybody's cards, mass.gov, WTF, mass.gov. So now I find out a lot of people knew about this, and I come do my talks and I go, here's our website, mass.gov, WTF, and everybody go, oh, that Mike, one of these days he's going to learn. So we had to put the P back in the program to make us perfect. So it's now mass.gov/WTFP. But what it taught me is the value of looking at what's going on in this economy and the value of understanding that without training and without staying in step with what's happening in this world, because it's no longer local, it's global pressures. When a company of 20 people has to get ISO certified because their vendor tracks all the way back to England, it's going to cost them $30,000. That is no longer local. So it's important to train. Get these skill sets to your employees and improve your company. Because let's face it, nobody wants their company to be a WTF. all right? Come get some of this money, put the P back in your company and make it perfect, and there's got to be a grant up here you can take advantage of based on all the money we've talked about today. So I thank you very much for your time and your patience. You need a question answered, feel free to call me. You can get hold of John. He'll send you the PowerPoint. Don't forget about the safety grant. Don't forget about the OJT grant. And have a wonderful holiday weekend. Thank you very much.
so much.